I'm the adult programming librarian at Jessamine County Public Library. Part of my job is to help people learn how to be more creative, and that suits me perfectly because I love to make things. In this series, I'm going to take you on some of my crafting adventures. So what are we waiting for? Let's see what we're going to make. Today's project is probably a little more utilitarian than fun, but we'll try to make it a good time nonetheless. We're going to make 3 different versions of the protective face masks that the CDC is recommending that we wear when we go out in public. The first type will require no sewing and no sewing machine. It can be made simply from any old t-shirt you have lying around the house. The second will require a sewing machine. It has elastic straps that go around the ears to keep it on. And finally, we'll make a mask with a sewing machine that has fabric ties to hold it on. We'll start with the simplest version first. First, find a t-shirt that you're ready to part with. Heavier cotton will work okay, and 100% cotton will be okay. But if your t-shirt has a little bit of another fabric, such as rayon or any manner of blend, it will have a little bit more stretch to it, which means the ties will tie on a little bit tighter and it will hold nicely. First, we're going to cut the arms and the neck off the t-shirt. So we're going to cut just under the arms, straight across. We can get rid of this piece. We don't need it anymore right now. So what you should have is a rectangular tube. And what we want to do now is just slice this tube open. If your t-shirt has seams, it's best to do it along the seam. If your t-shirt doesn't have seams, that's just fine. Slit it anywhere, straight up and down. Then I go back and clean up the edge where we trim the seam. This isn't necessary, it's just aesthetic. And also, I trim off the hemmed bottom of the t-shirt. Alright, so now you see we have a big long rectangle. We're going to fold it in half. Now we're going to create the straps. Put the folded side away from you, the unfolded side towards you. Come in about 2 inches from the edge and cut straight down until you get 3 to 4 inches from the center and stop. Do the same thing on the other side. Come in about 2 inches, cut straight down, and stop when you're 3 to 4 inches from the folded edge. So now you've got these two pieces. We're going to spin it around and we're going to cut off the biggest section. So we're going to cut from where you stopped for one tie up to where you stopped for the other tie. And now you have a piece that looks like this. We're going to unfold that piece and ta-da! This is the point in the project where we can include a filter, if we'd like, in the center before we fold it up and put it on our face. Some of the things that I read were great recommendations for filterable material that you could breathe through, but that still blocked a few more particles, were coffee filters. Real wool felt. I happen to do a bit of felting, so I have sheets of real wool felt around my house. I don't know if most people have that, but if you do, it's a good filter. Pieces of the fabric reusable shopping bags, not the shiny plastic kind, but this sort of mesh fabric kind. Another recommendation were cotton tea towels. They're the heavy but smooth, thin cotton, not the terry cloth sort. Some people call them tea towels. I've heard them called bar towels. They look like this. So any one of these pieces of material could be formed into essentially about a 4-inch by 3-inch rectangle and placed in the center of your piece. I think I'm going to go with the shopping bag this time, just to be different. All right, now you fold the bottom half up 1/3 of the way, like so. You fold the top half down over that. And at this point, you could be finished and wear your mask. I do one more thing that holds the mask together a little bit better. Right at the bottom, of your mask, just through the first layer of fabric, snip a small hole with your scissors. You can just pinch the fabric together and the hole can be pretty tiny. Then take each of the straps from the top and stick them through that hole. It's best not to make your hole too close to the edge because you don't want it to rip open if you have to wash your mask. All right, now it's finished and ready to wear. Now let's make the mask that's held on with the elastic straps. For this project, you will need 2 pieces of cotton fabric. This could be cotton quilter's fabric. It could be fabric that you've cut from an all cotton t-shirt. All cotton works better this time, especially if it's a little thicker. It could be pillowcases, and those work really well if they're high thread count. Basically, anywhere you can find some good cotton fabric that when you hold it up to the light, not a lot of light passes through it, so has some density to it. You'll also need some elastic, 2 pieces, about a 1/4 inch wide and 7 inches long. If you don't happen to have elastic around your house, this project can be made to work with rubber bands or hair ties. If you can't find elastic just in your sewing kit, you might find it in a pair of old men's underwear, old pair of leggings, an old child's costume. The elastic in all of those items will probably be considerably thicker than a 1/4 inch, so you'll probably want to cut it down a little bit. The reason we do it a 1/4 inch wide is because that will fit nicely behind your ears. This mask is the easiest to put on and the most convenient, but it has a tendency to slip off your ears if it's too tight or the elastic is too wide. First thing we want to do is take our 2 pieces of fabric, 9 inches by 6 inches, and put them together and fold them into quarters. Then we're going to cut an angled edge, starting about 2 inches in on the long edge and going up about an inch on the short edge. We're going to cut at an angle. So right where I've drawn this line. We're going to cut through all 4 layers of fabric, hopefully making the edges the same. So now you have a piece of fabric that looks like this. Next, you'll need an iron. Your pieces are face out rather than face in. We're going to go along the top edge. We're going to fold it in about a 1/2 inch and iron it down all the way along the edge. Now you can do this without ironing if you're good at holding your edges down while you sew. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now this is the point where you might want to hold it up to your face and see if it covers your nose and your chin fairly well. It's okay and perhaps best if you have about an inch of fabric on the bottom under your chin, because we're going to make a little pocket for your chin to fit in, and that will also help hold it on. So this mask looks like a good size for me. Let's continue. Now we're simply going to sew that seam down. There's the top. And there's the bottom. So now it's sewed together and looks like this. Now we're going to do some more ironing. This time, fold your unsewn seam on the edge in, about 1/4 of an inch, and iron it down. Then fold that again into the center so that you've got a little pocket that your piece of elastic will slip through easily. If you call it a loop or a pocket, a fold, but this is what it will look like. So that's about 3/4 of an inch, and I'm ironing that down good and flat. Then of course we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So little 1/4 inch fold. Then bring that over and about 3/4 inches. I just stuck the elastic in so I could make sure that it was plenty wide enough that it would fit through there, but this is what it looks like. Now we're going to sew these down from here to here. If you want to leave the elastic inside the fold as you're sewing, that's fine. Just make sure at this juncture you don't sew the elastic into the fold. Let it be loose inside there and just sew along the very edge of this seam. And now we have a piece that looks like this. Next, you'll need a couple straight pins. Pull your elastic through the loops so that you have a little more elastic on one side than the other. With the side that has the most elastic, put the pin through the fabric, through the elastic, and back up again so that it's pinned down inside the loop. Do the same on both sides. So through the fabric, through the elastic, back up out so that I can easily stretch this piece and the other side does not come out. What we're going to do now, when we sew, we're going to pull this top piece so that it's taut and that it's the same length as the bottom piece. This will cause the fabric to gather where we've sewn the elastic in and pull it together so that it conforms better to the side of your face. So, pulling that top piece of elastic back, hold it with one finger, and flip the foot of your sewing machine down with the other finger. It should make the tension easy enough to be held by your foot, but enough that if you let go of the bottom, it automatically gathers up. Now we're going to sew right down over the top of the piece of elastic and through the fabric. So now you can see how one side of my piece has gathered up. Nice. Let's do the other side. So once again, pulling on that top piece of elastic with one finger, flipping your foot down with the other, landing right on top of the elastic and sewing through the 2 layers of fabric and the elastic. Now you should have a fabric mask that fits like this with some loose elastic ties. You'll have to stretch those ties around your ears and get an idea of where they need to overlap in order for the mask to stay on comfortably. So hold two ties together, pull it around your ear, and see how that works for you. This is sort of a guesstimation process, so you can feel it out with your fingers. You can put pins and hold it in place if you really want to measure accurately, but ultimately just make sure that you've got enough stretch to hold it on, but not so much that it pulls back around your ears and comes off. Now go ahead and sew those pieces of elastic together. I sew mine lengthwise following the lines on the elastic. Not across. This will just make them a little more durable. Alright, so now you have two elastic straps sewn on either side. There's one last part to this piece. This is making the little pocket for our chin. So now, fold your mask face to face like this and find the center along the bottom. We're going to sew a curved shape starting about 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, right here, to about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch in. Like this, in sort of a round shape like would be the bottom of your chin. You can see this line that I've drawn in here. We're going to sew right along that line. The more gradual your arc is, the more natural it will look. Now, the very last thing, I'm just going to go ahead and cut that piece of fabric off right there so that it rolls like this. And when we open it up, it has a pocket like this for your chin. So that's our finished piece. In my original face mask, I included a third layer, a piece of the tea towel that I mentioned earlier, between the outside two. But it's not necessary, and if you are looking for the best breathability, this one is definitely a little bit harder to breathe through than the one with just the 2 layers of quilting fabric. All right, now let's go on and make the one that has the cloth ties for holding it on. For this mask, once again, you'll need 2 9x6 rectangles of some kind of cotton fabric. A pillowcase works really well in this project because the other thing you need are 2 lengths of fabric that are approximately 2 inches wide and 36 inches long. So you need 2 strips. It just so happens that a standard pillowcase is about 18 inches across. So if you cut a 2-inch strip and then snip it, you'll have the length of your strap from that pillowcase. And you can get your 9x6 rectangles out of the rest of it. Once again, I've chosen to use some quilter's fabric. I figure if I've got to wear it, I might as well make it pretty. On this mask, you'll be able to put a piece of filterable material inside it after we're finished creating it. So you'll have a removable pouch in the center where you can put a filter. Just as we did with the last project, we're going to lay our pieces together, fold them into quarters, and trim at an angle, trim the corners off. What this does is make a shape that's a little bit closer to the shape of your face than just a basic rectangle. So now we've got smaller portions on the end, bigger portion in the middle where we want to cover our nose and mouth. Then we're going to go back and we're going to fold each of the edges into the center like this and refold it and iron that down. So now what you have is a long tie that is ironed in half with each of the edges folded in again to the center. And it kind of looks about the width of a shoelace. In fact, if you had a pair of really long shoelaces, that would work as well. Also, they sell this stuff pre-made in fabric stores, so that you don't have to go through the trouble of ironing it and folding it in yourself. But since we're trying to make do with things we have, the pillowcase and a little work with the iron does a good job. Next, we're going to take one piece of our fabric and one strap. We're going to find the center so that the straps are about equal distance on either side. And then we're going to insert the edge of the fabric into the center and fold the top piece of fabric over the top. So we've fitted it up to the center and then folded this over the top. And we're going to pin it there in the middle. And bring it down and pin it where it angles on the sides. So you can see now it fits around the edge of our fabric. We've got it pinned. Now we're going to sew, and we're going to start at the end of the strap and sew down the center of it. This is just going to make it a little more durable so it doesn't unravel, and we're going to sew the strap to the top of the fabric where we pinned. Now we're going to iron a fold just along the top of one edge of our other piece of fabric. This will be about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch. We're going to iron it down. Just so we've got a little folded edge there. And now we're going to sew that folded edge down. So now you have a piece of fabric with a seam along the top. Now we want to take our 2 finished pieces and place them face to face so that the bottom and the side edges line up. Then we're going to sew just the sides and the bottom so that the top remains open. Then we'll turn our piece right side out. Now you'll notice I've made a mistake. Instead of putting my 2 pieces face to face, as I should have, I put one face in and one face out. So that's okay. This is the pretty side. This is the back. The next thing we want to do is sew the 2 pieces together from about here to here. So that we still have an opening here for the filter, but that these close up together. It'll just make it conform to your face more nicely. Next, we'll pin our bottom strap on in the same way that we did the top. So open your tie, make sure it's approximately centered, insert the bottom of your mask, fold it over, pin, and do the same things on the sides. Then we're going to go ahead and sew the bottom strap on. Then we're going to fold the material one more time in the same way. So we have 2 pleats. Now we're going to sew a line straight down just on the side through these pleats to hold them down, one on either side. Now your mask has pleats on both sides. Finally, we're going to do the same little chin pocket that we did for our last mask. So fold the mask in half, and you'll want to pull it flat. Don't leave the pleated parts in the center. and make sure you have your top part on top and your bottom part on bottom so that you're putting the chin on the bottom part. And once again, we're going to start about an inch up from the bottom, from here, and draw a curve that comes down about an inch in from the fold on the bottom as well. So there's that line. We're just going to sew right along it. In our last mask that we finished, we can insert a little piece of filterable material in our pocket. Then, if that piece of material can't be reused, such as a coffee filter, can't be washed, then you could just take it out and throw it away. And if it can be washed, you can leave it in there.